Hi, Jan.
Hi, Randy.
Good morning. Good
Hi,
morning,
how are you?
Commissioners.
Hi, Joe.
Good morning, good morning.
I want to make sure, I don't think you've met Joe, Vicky, have you?
I have.
Joe Bodnar, Commissioner Vicky Klein.
Commissioner
Nice to meet
Klein,
you,
pleasure
Joe. Yes.
is mine, thank you. It's a little chilly out there, that's all, so.
I know.
You've met all the
Yes.
other ladies.
Nice to see you again, Joe. Hey.
Commissioner Klein, how are you?
Good,
Good morning
nice
to
to
see
see
you
ya.
all, thank you.
Very nice letter regarding that.
Yeah,
I was
I'll
impressed.
throw that into the mix. Our little discussion that just came.
You know, we
up.
always hate bad stuff.
Real quick, will you just roll call on that? I motioned and she seconded.
Roll calling, sorry.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Is there action?
No action.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay, I'm glad you're not.
Procedure. We gotta have
Right.
all the
That's right,
procedure, yes.
absolutely,
Lawyer.
absolutely.
Yes, I understand that, so. Okay, we're on the record.
You're up.
Yeah,
Good
let's
morning.
get it.
Well, good morning, and as we all discussed, we give you a little outline for today, try to not take up too much time, just to give you an update on what's happening down on floor one with the building department, things that are happening. So, as we mentioned, Joe came officially on board July 1 as our deputy director, and again, I can't say enough to this board that when I heard that process was in place, that I said you could have had to tie a rope on my feet because I was going to bounce off the ceiling. I was so excited to see that because I think it's an excellent process for the county. I think to have that succession planning
Absolutely.
is a good path. So we've been doing a lot, and I think in some ways talking with Janet, kind of using my office a little bit as a guinea pig in some regards. So we talk about protocol, we talk about training and transition, and so we've been working on that on a daily basis. It's nice that we work so close that we can constantly keep in touch. We constantly talk about what's happening in the office, any problems, any concerns. Joe gets involved, and we've been making a lot of progress, I think, that way. And so just to let you know that's going on. Of course, Janet's developed a transition plan for the deputy directors, which we sat through yesterday on ours, and we'll make a few minor changes, but it's a good base document for the county as a whole, and then you tweak to each person's or each department's needs. And of course, you already mentioned the little note that I provided to you.
Yes.
That we got, and that's the goals of
very
our
nice,
department,
too.
is to keep that flow, that type of, even if we don't get accolades, that's not the goal. But, so you folks, you ladies, don't get any phone calls. And if you do, there's something we can, it's tangible that we can show you if there's an error in anybody's way, we can tell you that. As far as our inspection staff, have been and will continue to back up the building inspector. On the electrical inspection side, we had a gentleman who had been with the county for many years, but his personal business has taken a little bit more of his time, so he didn't want to do a lot of commitment. It's Tony Mangieri.
Okay.
And so he just said, I just don't really have a lot of time, and I'd hate to leave you hanging. So we had another gentleman that, while Charles was here, had put on the docket of payroll, and so Dan D'Agostino, and he can help us in many ways, so he's willing to couple days when needed. He's only available 2 days a week, but that's okay. I think that'll keep us rolling. We don't take a lot of time off. Next week with Christmas, we have some vacation coming in, but we'll handle that. And then finally, with the office staff, and I mentioned this previously, between now and sometime during the first quarter, I'm going to reevaluate the office staff's job descriptions, because I think they're woefully short of what the staff does, even things they do with code that are real technical. I'm going to put all that together just to let you know. It'll be placed. I'll give it to Janet, let her evaluate it, let her take a look at it, run any factors, and then certainly we won't do anything, but just have all the information, then we'll come back and chat.
Well, that needs to happen from time to
It
time,
does.
Randy, just update.
It does. Well, one simple example that is not in any job description. Each of the staff are notaries. Why? Because we have legal documents that have to be notarized at the counter.
Right.
Other departments don't have that requirement.
Yeah.
So each of the staff, and even our part-time lady, Jeannie Simak, she went out and got her notary. And so we'll talk about, those are just some of the things I want to make sure that are correct, because we need that validity at our counter.
Sure.
So somebody doesn't have to say, well, I gotta go to the bank to get this notarized.
Mhm.
I'm glad you're being proactive
Yeah.
and doing this. That's
Right.
great.
Well, we appreciate that. So some of the things that we have done is some what I call community info with the townships and villages, not just not the residents, but I put together a memo document to all the zoning folks. We'll talk about what we do together, how we do it, not telling them what to do, but giving them information about our office. So we continue to make sure, because oftentimes, let's face it, zoning is a business within the communities that's volunteer. You know, it's not paid usually, or if it is, it's just a token type of thing, and people do it because they care. And so they lean on my office sometimes, say, well, what should I do? So I ended up, when I got done, it was a 5-page document, but it went to all the zoning folks. And I said, please share this with your administrators as well on things that we do. And we're doing the same thing right now with fire departments. Because oftentimes in our business, one of the things that we're, with an applicant, let's say for a commercial building, technically they're supposed to deliver drawings to the fire department. We've always been the path for that. So you just give us an extra set of drawings, we'll provide them to the fire department. Well, now the fire departments then got a little lax, they lean on us to administer their code, which we can't. So we're going to give them information, how they can properly document their requirements, but we still will share them with the customer, but make sure they have it set in such a way that it'll last, you know, if we have to go down with appeal or anything. So we're doing that right now. If I can flip over to some of our activities, residential projects have turned off a little bit. Some of the residential, as we get into the winter months, to back down, but we're still quite busy. But one interesting point is we record both residentially and commercially plan reviews. So when we get, for example, a new house or an addition, and we do, of that level, we collect a plan review fee up front, which is all part of the permit process through the prior resolution. And with that said, we number those. So now I'm not talking decks or installation of a new furnace or new air or things of that nature. We're up to 450 plan reviewed projects this year so far.
Wow.
And that's just in the residential. On the commercial side, I'd like Joe to handle some of that, and talk to you about just a couple things on the commercial, kind of in the same vein. Joe, if you would.
Sure, and, excuse me, again, good morning, and if you'll indulge me for just 1 second, I'd like to express my gratitude to the commissioners and to the county for the opportunity, along in concert with the transition plan and deputy directorship. I want that to go on record to say thank you for expressing your confidence in Randy and the process that we're using to go ahead and get me to that position. So thank you for that indulgence to allow me to express that. On the commercial side, as Randy said, we log in all the projects when they come on board. We currently have over 427 projects logged in this year. We had 427 at the publishing of this summary report, then we've had 4 more come in, so we're about 430, 431 currently. And we attempt, when that comes in, just so you know, we tag that project when it comes in with a PE number, that's the sign, and then we try very diligently to try to stick to a 2-week turnaround time. So when we get that in, the code allows up to 30 days for that to happen. But we try to be expeditious and try to stay concurrent with a quick turnaround time. The guys and gals who build want to basically get the project in, get it approved, get it built, get paid, go on to the next. So we want to try to stick with that, and that's how we've established that in the department. As for some new projects on the horizon, we've had a series. At this point, the rumblings and the submissions that have kind of made its way through our department and then forwarded on to PCRP, regional planning, include but aren't limited to Cranberry Creeks. There's a submission currently at PCRPC for that extension or expansion of that project. Ravenna Township just came to us within the last couple of days for a new salt storage building. Just get a feel for what we would be looking for to help the zoning and the trustees to know what they have to have for submission requirements and what their design professional should be looking for in that. Sunny Hills Villas, which is on Talmadge Road. The owner came in early part of last week. They want to build their final phase of 2 more residential buildings out front of the existing project, along with the associated residence garages for that. We did get a site plan for the new Arby's restaurant, which is going to go across or due east of the existing Raising Cane's restaurant. So at some point,
Really?
yeah. So
Wow.
there's a new Arby's restaurant that will go in that outlot down there off of 59. We also had met with a gentleman who is looking to relocate his. I call it almost a self-proprietor, but it's a mobile welding company from where he is currently at into the former Jet Rubber empty building. There's 2 Jet Rubber.
Rootstown?
In Rootstown.
Okay.
Yeah, Jet Rubber has an existing facility. They're still in production at their latest, but they had an old building that they kind of rolled out of when they built that new building, or newer. And he's looking to try to get in to see what the limitations are. So we, Bill Ross and I met with him to talk about what the limits would be and some of the areas and the processes necessary to get into refurbing an empty or currently vacant building as well.
Joe, the new Arby's, are they gonna raise the old one? Is that what they're gonna do? or-
Well, we don't know that for sure. We don't
Okay.
know. We assume with the proximity
I would
that they're gonna
think,
outdate
yeah.
that one and
Okay.
just, they'll,
Outdated,
yeah, it's.
a very
kind
good
of-
term. It's like walking into the 70s.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know about that, you're too young.
So we assume that they'll either, we have no, from our department's perspective, how they liquidate a previous property is really not, now if somebody comes in and wants to, reoccupy that or change the use,
I
then
see,
that falls
gotcha,
under our
gotcha.
department. But from that perspective, from the business plan, we're great to see a brand new
Oh,
restaurant go
sure,
open.
yeah.
So, if you wish, the last project that I would cover briefly, and if you wish to see it, I'll be more than happy to lay out a drawing on it, but we did get a preliminary site plan for the former Green Hills Golf Club out on Brimfield, off of Talmadge. So we have been afforded a preliminary look at what appears to be a rather large residential scale property ringing the perimeter of the property with a large open area for what appears to be a multi-use, mixed-use core inside there. We've heard everything from potentially a assisted living component on the healthcare side to might be a mix of some residents and or some business.
Like
We don't know.
condos, or you don't know?
We don't know the scope of that, Randy, unless
Okay.
you know anything.
It's a well laid out plot plan with streets and infrastructure, and you can, turn that around, but you can see the circle of
The
lots.
ring road goes all the way around it with lots around it with a rather
Yeah, that's
substantial
big.
area. It takes up
It's a
the
big
entire
area.
golf project, so
Yeah.
the old.
I would envision condo cluster,
Okay.
because it's individual lots.
Okay.
So more, you certainly could call them a condo, but it all depends on your real estate
Right.
nomenclature,
Right.
but
A
a
freestanding.
freestanding condo
And you
cluster.
know, the developer is real big into like assisted living and
Mhm.
I know, I spoke to him, it's like a continuum of care. They
Mhm.
start out with like 55 plus,
Right.
then they go to like an assisted living
Living,
component,
Transitional in
to,
nature.
That's
Yeah,
skilled.
yeah.
and then skilled.
Sure, yeah, that's
It's
very,
common.
we see that
Yes.
prevalent
Yeah.
in our world today, all of us.
As well
baby
as
boomers.
having the amenities as well as. some
Exactly,
commercial.
so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but anyways, we do have that, so it was afforded to
Good.
us, so.
So that summarizes briefly my component for this, and thank you again for the opportunity. I really appreciate that. I think it's very wise for a transition plan, and I've worked in Portage County since I became registered in '94, so I know a lot of the people and the players. It's kind of been the stomping ground for my professional career. up to this point, so
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you, Joe. That
Joe,
goes
we're
two
glad
ways.
to have you on board doing this.
Joe, I have a question on one of your commercial projects
Sure.
in your list for the Coyote Mexican Grill.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that gonna be opening soon? I see they
Yes,
got the fire
It's open
suppression.
now.
Is
And
it?
actually, if, I'll take 1 second, I will be writing, our department will be issuing a temporary certificate of occupancy later today for that. So it's been through inspections, we got a little ding here or there, but we'll be issuing a temporary.
It's right next to my nail salon, and I
Okay.
keep watching the progress, and I'm thinking,
Looks like a great
It's gonna
restaurant, they
open.
put, it looks like a lot of money into it, and that's a great addition out there. So, yep.
Okay.
and Randy, you're gonna cover the,
Yes.
okay.
All right, so now to move ahead on the two highlighted Excel spreadsheets you have, one is labeled the top December 2019, and of course the other is 18, for a little comparison year to year. And the biggest thing, of course, we could talk about everything that's in the line items, the number of residential, the number of commercial permits at the top, jump off the page, over 2,000 residential permits and over almost 570 commercial permits that have been issued. And of course, as I always point out, we have to remember that these don't indicate individual buildings, they indicate many things. You may have 4 permits to a house, or
Right.
3 permits to a house, as an
Right.
example. But the inspection activity continues to be up, but we're keeping ahead of the curve. And so far, so good on that. The state fees, obviously, that's what we pay back to the state for our continuing education that they, through House bill, that we have to collect with each permit. Some is small, $1, some, they all add up, but we're at $10,000 we've paid back to the state. I think kind of an interesting point, though, is always the valuation. Now, again, this is what people tell us. Is it an appraised evaluation?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but it's a valuation that people put on their applications, which of course we transfer to the auditor's office so they can start their process. So, at 124 million this year versus 82 million last year, that's a big
jump.
thing for the county. And that tells us that the townships and villages, which is our only jurisdiction besides the cities, are, that's a big increase.
There's a
That's
lot
in
of growth.
valuation of property. Now, we have some big projects, as you all know. We have
Yeah.
Menards, we have Myers,
Yeah, the
that's a
Maple
big-
Crest.
we have some big things, but that's a lot of industry going in. Contractor registration is just, hopefully the contractors always register, and we always have our problems, as I mentioned to you earlier in a previous communication, that I was in court not too long ago, where the state attorney general took a local contractor, fortunately not housed in Portage County, but housed in Summit County, took him to court because of things that he did to homeowners throughout the Summit County, Portage County area. And so all the building officials were there to testify. And that unfortunately is still in the hands of the judge, because it was not a court, or not a jury trial. And so we're waiting for the outcome of that, but I did have a call from a local homeowner for that same contractor who had come in and said, I'll do the job, and took a lot of the guy's money, and it's been weeks and weeks and weeks, nothing started. And I said, unfortunately, without anything on my side, I can't do anything about that. And lastly, the big thing is, of course, the dollars and cents, which we all worry about that and concern ourselves with. So you can see that for December 1 of this year, we are at almost $592,000 in fees that we've received and put into the general fund, which is a substantial leap over last year's fees.
And wouldn't you contribute that to the increase in the fees? Remember we had.
Combination, fee increases.
Of
and more
activity as well
activity.
as.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one time, if Janet Esposito was here, she said that, and she would back me up on this years ago before I retired, you need to have a little more work down there. And I said, Janet, I can't go out and lay in the road and we laughed. She and I get along so well, we could do that with each other. And really what it boils down to is the numbers on these pages are a direct relationship to what's happening out there. If nothing happens out there, nothing happens here.
Right.
We know that. I mean, that's a simple math effort. And so our goal was and always will be to do our very level best to assist and keep obstacles out of the way of those we serve, meaning those who are
Yeah.
paying these fees, to encourage them to work with our office to make sure that they don't walk away with a negative connotation of a building department, which is just out there because it is, and say it's, it's pretty easy to work with that group and they're helpful. And if they do that, then more people will come to us instead of that homeowner who says, I'm gonna build a deck, I'm not gonna go.
Or they just take on the liability because they don't want to deal with it.
Exactly, exactly.
Separate.
So that happens. All right, to conclude a little bit, and real quick here, since I know you have a heavy agenda, what we are doing is we have some, what I like to call them abnormal projects, things that just pop up and sometimes I'll say cause us grief. And of course, as you know, we had a lot of those when I took over that I had to clean up, but those are all, for the most part, that's done. So just a few comments. One of the things we get involved in is search warrants. We get search warrants to go out to properties, and sometimes they're blighted, and that's pretty simple stuff. But sometimes they're not, and they're very complex. So we've had some, Joe, with, kind of bath by fire here. We've had 3 so far since he came on board in June that were pretty critical things to see, and he got to see some very bad living conditions, to which we had to exercise our powers that the state gives us and adjudicate and order some things. We don't condemn, that goes through the court. Mostly when the township or village requests that through a search warrant, we report back, and then they take our reports along with fire and health and go to the court and they would condemn. But we've had a few of those. We've had, of course, it's been published, the Flamingo Motel out there in Stillwater. And we had to go home and, delouse ourselves, if you will.
I saw pictures.
It was not pretty. And the sad part is
People are living there.
Yeah, that was the saddest part to me, is the protection of the human spirit or human person. It was not pretty. But we get those, and we have a project down in Deerfield, and fortunately, Kathleen, you got to sit in on a appeals board hearing that I brought up as a secondary part to an appeals board, which of course the appeals board works for the commissioners, and so we're having a problematic issue with an owner and a person who built a building down there. And that person doesn't he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he came to the appeals board and got an appeal for something, and then he kind of did the opposite, turned a residential building into a commercial use building. And without zoning, that's a problematic issue, of course, but which we have no control over, nor does the community. And that individual, due to what I had to do, unfortunately, and you'll probably hear about it some way down the road, he filed 3 formal complaints against me personally at the state, which the state backed me up. They backed me up. They said, no, you have nothing. So those are the things we see, and occasionally we have stop work orders on some buildings. We have a couple of those where people are doing things incorrectly, and we do that for 2 reasons. One is legally we have to, but more importantly, morally, it protects the person from getting too far ahead, so they don't waste money. With that said, the last thing I'll do is just last 2 components. For the requirements as we look into the 2020, we're going to be adding, ISIS is our software program we use to manage our business. We're going to add that to 2 computers. We have the seats that we don't pay extra for those. We'll just have a few dollars for the installation of that with the company. It's a private company. And the last thing I'm going to be having to do, unfortunately, is look at another vehicle. The last vehicle we have it's whining pretty hard, and I know it's bearing pain in the engine. And so if we can get it to auction before then, will be beneficial. Otherwise, we'll be down, and so I'll be exploring that, with Enterprise and also with Joanne and Todd, and we'll make sure that I'll bring all that to you at that point, and we'll make sure you have all the information. But that's just to let you know what's kind of coming up. But we're not looking to spend any money if we don't have to.
You've done an awesome job with the budget down there, so
We're
I'm very
trying.
appreciative.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your leadership and the transition, and also with Joe, that you guys have done very well.
Thank
And
you.
my phone never rings anymore for your department.
Good.
It's also a good sign.
Good.
I love it.
Yeah, we always got the calls.
right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a good holiday.
Merry Christmas to you.
Joe, good seeing you again.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine, as always, and look forward to the continued relationship. Thank you again.
You do too.
Thank you.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
no.
We got a recess, we got a recess for the
Yes.
job report. Okay, Commissioner Dvorak, you wanna come
morning.
on forward, please?
Yeah, Ralph texted